Hello, welcome back to the sewing room. I'm Laura, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to sew a hem like that one without driving yourself nuts. One of the things about sewing that's different from knitting is that there really are a lot of tools that make sewing easier, and especially making your pressing easier. So first of all, you do want a good iron. You'll see mine featured today in the video. You will also want some sort of clapper. And I love this hemming measuring tool. Of course, you can measure a hem any way you like, but I love this one because you'll see you can put it right under your hem and press right on it and not damage it and not damage your fabric and have a nice even hem every time. All right, so first of all, a lot of instructions basically tell you to fold your hem like this and then fold it over on itself like this. And that does work, but it's not the easiest way to do it. The easiest way to do it, in my opinion, is to measure double the width of the hem you want, press that, and then fold that back on itself, because that's going to be, in my opinion, a lot easier to get consistent. So I'm going to show you how that works. So I've got my 1/2 inch fold here. Nice hard bang with the clapper. Open that out, and then now it's very easy for you to see exactly how far that has to fold down to meet that. Another quick slap at the clapper. And that is ready to take this to the sewing machine. Now, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a very straight grain. This is not a curved hem at all. You would be very hard pressed to find a hem that is easier to hem than a really straight hem like this. The curvier the hem, the harder it's going to be to get your fabric to behave really easily like this. But there is another one thing you can do that makes hemming any kind of hem easier if it's giving you trouble, or even before it gives you trouble, is to sew a line of stay stitching. I made that too far up. Let's try that again. Put a line of stay stitching right next to where you want this fold to fall. So like on the inside of this, not on the outside because then it would show, but on the inside, and that will help keep that from stretching out as you're handling it. Point of fact, on this shirt I do have a facing for the button band, and I don't want to hem the facing the same way I'm going to face everything else. I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat. So I'm going to fold back along, I'm going to unfold where I pressed, I'm going to fold back along my facing, and when I go to the machine I'm just going to stitch along that 1/2 inch right up until the edge of the facing, backstitch and stop, and that's going to serve as the hem for the facing, and then that will flip up. I've stitched that facing down, right sides together, and this is all going to be enclosed more or less by the facing being folded back over and by either the buttons or the buttonholes being sewn through this facing. So that means you don't have to be scared of it fraying. But this is a very well behaved, tightly woven cotton fabric, so but I do have to worry about bulk. There's quite a bit. There's several layers in here, and if I just leave it, it's going to be a really big lump. So I am going to trim this corner basically as close as I dare. Okay, one of the big MVPs in my sewing room is actually not technically a sewing tool. It's these guys. I've heard them called hemostats. Sometimes they're called forceps, I think. My sister likes to get the locking part of hers taken off, but I don't mind that it locks. And one of the things it's great for is turning a really sharp corner. Is that you kind of pinch the corner you want to turn, you push it through, and then very gently, once you're kind of happy with that, you can unlock it. And again, it's always very tempting to stick your finger in there, but my finger is way fatter than the corner I'm trying to make, so if I do that, all that's going to do is stretch the fabric around it and possibly, make it worse. So instead, take your thin tool and jam it in there, and that is a pretty nice looking corner. Alright, turned, pressed, pounded down. And now when I go to stitch the rest of the hem, I'm just going to extend the top stitching from the hem all the way to the edge here, so that it just looks like a nice, neat design element. Now I know there are people who love old machines for the way they look and for their rock solid dependability, and those are great things. But another reason to love these machines is that the back and the front of the stitch look nearly identical. Not at all something you can say for most new machines. Not to knock new machines, but it's very rare for the front and the back of the stitch to look really similar. Which is why normally when we say we're top stitching a hem, you really have to sew it from the top and kind of hope. Either pin or baste this first, and so that way you can have a better chance of actually hitting the folded edge as you're sewing from the right side, or use a vintage machine, and then you don't have to hope, you can see, you can actually sew it from the bottom. So yes, that's one of the things I do that's not entirely correct, is I top stitch when I can from the bottom. And I'm going to start not back stitching here because that would look kind of ugly, so instead I'm going to actually do it the old-fashioned way and pull that through a different way. I'll show you that in a minute. Making sure you can actually see what I'm doing from way over there. Yeah, all right, cool. Now my goal still is to be watching my guide here on the machine bed, but since I can see the inside of the work, I can see if that fold starts to slip down or flip out or otherwise just not be right, and if that happens, I can always stop and fix it, either with a well-placed pin or with taking it back to the ironing board and pressing it some more. Now, a disadvantage of this method is that since my hemmed edge, the inside edge, is on the outside when I'm sewing, the feed dogs aren't going to help ease this in at all. So if you have a curved hem or a hem where you definitely need to have some easing occurring on the underside, you really should maybe try to sew it the other direction, flipped with the top side up, because that is one of the things that the feed dogs are going to basically do for you as you sew. In this case, again, this is such a straight hem, I don't have to do that. Alright, going back to that beginning where I did not backstitch. You in focus? Please be in focus. Not at all. Oh, there we go. Okay. All I'm going to do is pull on the side I want to be the inside until I can pull out the loop from the other side. So now I've got no loose threads on the top, 2 loose threads on the bottom, and then all I have to do is tie them to each other. trim that, and if I want to feel a little more secure, I can put a dab of fray check on that knot to make sure it holds forever. And here's the finished hem. I am super, super happy with it. I just have a little hand stitching the cuff facings and buttons and buttonholes, and this blouse is done. I'm gonna zoom in. Boop. Looks pretty good.